I want people to feel that they can be so confident in themselves and feel like they can express who they truly are through music.
One of the things that I try to implement and teach as well is that like we're not just solving music problems, we're solving life problems through music. It's not about the music, it's about what the music helps you do.
And I don't know what it is I'm doing. For some reason, through my lessons, I'm able to help people find the confidence in their own voice and share it. I work with all ages above 8. I teach a lot of different things, right? You've seen that, like piano, guitar, bass, ukulele, songwriting, recording, but my main instrument is voice.
Voice.
It's what I studied. I was an opera singer when I was in college and did a lot of touring with that in Italy. But then I realized through a competition that I was like, I don't want to feel so stiff. I want to be able to
Stiff.
release. Like,
Oh.
like when I had to perform, I had to be like this. And one competition, I was supposed, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I was supposed to take first place. And because I didn't break, but I leaned forward to hold the baby
Uh-huh.
and I got docked 2 points, which made me lose because the other person had
Oh.
1 point above me. Anyway, and I realized I'm like, I want to be able to give to the audience the
Mm-hmm.
feeling that I'm having. I don't want to feel like I have to be this the whole time. So, long story short with that is I think, gosh, how would you explain my teaching? I want people to feel that they can be so confident in themselves and feel like they can express who they truly are through music.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I changed in my branding from just like being a music teacher to being a music and vocal confidence coach. I feel that music is a
Oh.
way that even if you don't want to make it your profession or you don't want to be the best you can be at it,
Mm-hmm.
you can use it as a catalyst to make you feel more confident and build your self-esteem to be able to communicate with people better, to be able to communicate with yourself better. So that I don't know if that answers your question. It's hard for me to say like what my niche is, but with my adult
Yeah.
students, it's like helping them believe in their voices so that they feel confident in their everyday life. And with the young people, some of them want to learn the theory, but a lot of them, the parents come to me because they want their kids to feel like they're feeling so low in their self-esteem that they wanted them to feel better, and through my lessons that's what I help with.
Gotcha. So like adding in the emphasis to the confidence part, was that because of the opera experience or like what was the origin story there?
So that I had this one adult student where our half-hour lessons just turned into me listening to her talk for the most part, and then at the very end I would say, let's at least do one song.
Mm-hmm.
And her being able to like just get out of her body the things that were going on through work and her relationships and all this stuff. When she would sing, I would give her her top 3 things to think about, and she would just keep getting better each week, even though she wasn't singing consistently. But it
Oh,
was
okay.
because she was finding the confidence and grounding herself in her own voice and feeling like her voice mattered again.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where that came from. It was mainly her. I'm like, I feel like this happens with a lot of my students, is that they think they come in because they just want to sing, but they end up asking for a promotion and getting it. They end
Uh-huh.
up, communicating properly to like their spouse or their partner and opening up a whole dialogue of things that makes them stronger together. And I don't know
Oh.
what it is I'm doing, but for some reason through my lessons, especially the singing lessons, I'm able to help people find the confidence in their own voice and share it. And so
Yeah.
that's where that came from. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to focus on that because I love building people up and making them feel that they can be so powerful through music, but it transfers to your everyday life.
I like that. I like that. Like that's so important because, one of the things that I try to implement and teach as well is that like we're not just solving music problems, we're solving life problems like through music. and
Yeah.
and that's I feel like that's why we're here on this earth is to like help people understand that aspect. Like it's not about the music, it's about what the music what the music helps you do. So So I'm really glad that you already
100%.
do that a bunch with your students.
It's probably the thing that I really dive into the most. It's also a part of the two nonprofits that I was in for the last 20 years before I started my own business, and all
Yeah,
of
you're
them were
telling me
very
a little bit about
character
that.
yeah, they were all very character building, and the premise that like the base was music, but they were all here's my buddy. He's going to come say hi. They're all, every program was based off of like play your music, but tell a story that inspires someone to feel that they can connect to it so that they grow, so they feel like they have the power to,
Hmm.
to ground themselves or feel real confident in who they were, to believe in themselves,
Yeah.
to believe they matter or to believe that other people matter or what they do matters and they do have a voice that people need to hear. So, yeah, that
Yeah. So
was
I mean, what was
a
that
lot of my
road like?
upbringing.
What was that road like to get to where you are now? Because I remember us talking about it a little bit last time, and talking about like going from the nonprofits to then your own studio. What was that like again?
Yeah. So the two nonprofits that I worked at, one was where we would travel to schools and I would perform my own music and lead games, anywhere from 50 to 300 people, full day program, constantly interacting with ages fourth grade all the way into the educators.
Hmm.
And then the other nonprofit was She Rock, where it, this nonprofit is dedicated to getting instruments in the hands of girls, women, trans folk, and non-binary folk, to let them know, like the more marginalized minority that you don't
Hmm.
see as often, or at least we didn't when we started the organization 15 years ago. Um, that you never saw them being seen on the television, as it was okay for us to play an instrument. Like most of the time, for me, I always saw that it was a woman singing background vocals or a woman singing lead, but I really rarely saw any women playing instruments. So we wanted
Hmm.
to encourage that, but that was like half of it. And the other half was to empower them to believe that they can accomplish anything as as somebody that was in that, minority, the women, girls, trans and binary. You can do anything you want to, and music can just be a catalyst for it,
Yeah.
to believe in yourself. So those two things, right? I've always worked with people to make them feel so good about who they are inside so that the outside can feel like it can shine in any situation.
Hmm.
And also through both of those, I was constantly teaching
Oh,
and
okay,
learning how
okay.
to teach and learning how to interact with young people and people my age or older. And I just decided one day, I'm like, I need to be challenged more. I want to start my own business. I want to get out there and do more, like how I challenge everybody else. I want to challenge myself to be on another level. So I
Hmm.
left those two organizations to start my business teaching, which
Yeah.
turned into me just contracting through a music school in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then COVID happened and
Mm.
kind of made it so that I had to make it my own studio and not rent somewhere. Um, and that's kind of where I'm at. And now I do it all online and I love it.
Yeah. So I guess what is your structure of your studio look like so far? Like you just do all online lessons?
I do everything online. I have 36 consistent students weekly.
Nice.
The saying like 25 that are full time, and then the rest are kind of like either part time every other week, where they do an
Hmm.
hour instead of a half hour, or some of them, take a month and then they take a month off and then they do the next month,
Hmm.
which is it for me, and the way that I work is a really good schedule because it keeps me fresh.
Yeah.
And I like to keep fresh in the lessons I do. If I do everything so this way, I start to lose my creativity and my being present. So I like to keep things fresh and always up my game if I can.
Yeah. So like for well, first off, I just want to say I really like how everything in your story has kind of it's even though you changed from like nonprofit to teaching at another studio to now teaching at your own studio, it's like I feel like everything's all just been in alignment with
Yeah,
the message that you're trying to bring across. Just like get your confidence up through music and through
yeah,
singing. So I think that's always an important thing. That, like when teachers are looking for like, oh, where should I niche down or something like that. It's like we gotta figure out
Mhm.
like what aligns with us, like emotionally.
Yes. And actually hearing you say that, it reminds me of when I was younger and I was very insecure and I had a lot of self-esteem issues. But the one thing I did have was my voice, and I was
Mm,
really talented. For a
yeah.
young age, at 13, I was able to sing opera, but I still felt in school that I wanted to stay invisible. I was really afraid of being bullied because in elementary school I was bullied really bad. But
Hmm.
I think probably it's that helped me to pursue these other organizations that I worked for that really solidified the strength that I have in myself. And then I'm like, I want to do that for others
Nice,
on my own.
nice.
Like, I want to create that for others because I really needed that when I was in middle school and high school.
Hmm.
And the teachers that I had were very like, nothing wrong with this, but very classical based. And it was just very structured. And it wasn't built around the student, it was built around you learning the instrument. And for me, I build mine around learning the student and what their needs are. And if it takes them a little longer, it takes them a little longer. But if
Yeah,
they feel that connection and don't resent music when they get older, then I totally met my goal because
100%.
they got stronger as a person and they don't resent lessons and they, you know, yeah, it's a way to
No,
connect.
that was me too because I don't know if I told you like growing up I didn't really enjoy piano lessons. It felt more like a chore to me.
Hmm.
But not until I got into like high school and I started liking marching band and I had fun like meeting new friends and having new experiences there. And that was what got me like really into music. So by the time college came around and I had to choose like what major I had to be, um, all I really knew was music. Like that was like really
Hmm.
like the only thing that I really cared about in my life at the
Yeah.
time. So choosing a major was like, I've always just chose a path of like, what do I want? What do I want to do in that moment? And then just hope for the best for the future and made it work. Um, so so I feel you right there with like music was really the only thing that I knew. And now and then that became my mission for getting into music was to like share that opportunity music education with everyone in the world because that's what it did for me. Like I got that
Yeah.
opportunity, so I'm glad that's like part of your mission as
Totally
well.
relate. Absolutely. I also I don't know if you had this, but I, like had it stuck in my mind in high school when I first got my guitar and Jewel came out and I was like, I want to be Jewel. I could totally do this, and I'm writing my own songs and, just putting one finger on one string and just playing three. I'm like, oh, that's so pretty. And just writing these songs that were so folky. And I
Mhm.
thought by the time I'm 18 and I graduate, I'm going to be famous. And then I was like, by the time I'm 20, I'm going to be famous. By the time I'm 21, and then it was 25. And then when 25 hit, I was like, well, you know what? I'm not famous, but I am really successful.
Mhm.
And it changed my whole perspective on how being a musician isn't about being famous for a career. It's about being successful and making yourself happy in that career. The
Yep.
expectation that I had to be famous and then I never made it. Of course, I would never make it. I grew up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. My gosh, nobody ever came there. And we didn't have the internet for me to put my stuff out there, right? I'm like, nobody's going to see me perform and be like, yeah, that girl, let's do it. But when I figured out the idea of like it's feeling like you are successful and you have somewhere to build that success versus
Mhm.
like always relying on being picked or chosen or expecting that you are going to be the lucky one and it never happens, you're always disappointed. That is another thing that I love teaching all of my students is that no matter where they want to go in life, it's not about being the one that has your name on the billboard. It's about the journey you take to get there that makes your heart soar and smile and feel so awesome. I almost swore.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like just, oh, that's what matters. Because once you have your name on that billboard that one time, it's like, now what?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
you
like what's
know
next now?
yes, if Right. You can, I mean, you can build yourself to get there, but you need to understand all the ins and outs that got you that place. But if it happens so fast and you don't know anything about it, you could just be putting yourself in a position where you are stuck in music jail for the rest of your
Hmm.
life because you don't understand anything. You rely on everybody else.
Yeah.
So I could talk about that forever. Oh,
No,
you know?
that happens a lot with us in our studios as well. Just like business owners as well. We get caught up in like income goals, and we get caught up in like, oh,
Mhm.
we have to make this amount and this amount, or this is our next goal, and we just have to keep going up and up.
Yeah.
Until when, right? And
Right.
what for me, sometimes I get caught up in that, but then I pull myself back, and I have to remember that, like, wait, you're not working towards a dream. Like, I'm living the dream right
Yeah.
now. Like, I don't see myself doing anything other than coaching. And now I feel like, especially last year, like I feel like I'm fully aligned with what I want to do, because now I'm spending time coaching throughout the week, but then I'm also spending a lot of my time being a musician as well, and
Hmm.
building up that side of my career. And it's just been so fun. Like, that's
Yeah.
it. It's like
Absolutely.
that's the point of like living life. It's just like I get to do this until I
Yeah.
want to do something else.
And that's exactly where I was at for the first, I would call it my young adult life, so 20 to 40. It's
Mhm,
exactly where I was at. I was in this nonprofit where every day I was performing. I was in another nonprofit where every day I got to teach young and older people how to play music, and then I also got to perform. Then I was
mhm.
also in all these bands that were touring all over the country, and a lot of times going overseas to perform for the troops or going on tour in Germany and stuff like that. And it's like, but and that's where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And then I just got to a place where I'm like, I need more. I've done that. Like we all, what I guess my point is like we all have these journeys, and when we get there and we let ourselves settle, it's awesome.
Mhm.
But that journey continues to evolve,
Yeah.
whether it's, for some people, I mean, I could have went off and like just did performance and gave up on but I was like, I want more than that. I want to be able to give to people, not just through what I'm doing on stage, but like physically be there and be, like a confidant for them musically,
Mhm.
to feel like they can, shine like I have felt the last 20 years.
Can
And
I
so I
ask a
totally
question
agree with
about
you.
that?
Like you're in a, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Because one of the things that I feel like I get out of our conversations a lot is that you really value yourself being a musician, like, first as well. And that's always been like part of your life, especially like you still are a singer now as you're teaching. And a
Mhm.
big part of my message here is also making sure that teachers are aligned with their core self. And at the end of the day, I feel like none of our core selves are teachers. It's musicians,
Mhm.
and
Right.
a lot of us lose touch with that because we get so caught up in the teaching part and in the making money part that we start to lose that side of we start to lose that touch of why we started in the first place, being a musician. So then, when I ask a lot of teachers what they want to do with their freedom, a lot of them just want to be able to practice again or be able to
Yeah.
perform again, and they're just so busy teaching that they can't do that. So like I'd love to hear your perspective on like how important is it to be a musician like while you're teaching as well, and make that a priority for you.
I love that question. It's like probably the best question for me to answer right now because I figured something out with this. When I first started, when I when I got out of being a classical musician and started writing my own music, I wrote probably 300 songs in 4 years. I just could not stop.
Hmm.
And at the time, the only way you could get something recorded is to go into a recording studio and pay $2,000 for one song, kind of thing. It was just ridiculous. Or if you knew people, but it was
Hmm.
hard to do that. But when I decided that I wanted to make money off of my music, I had to join cover bands.
Okay.
And then also working at this nonprofit that went into schools, I was a very non-conforming songwriter. They wanted me to write songs for the students that had more of a conforming style,
When
which
you say
would
conforming,
then
like Was that like
A
mean?
B A B A C B
Oh,
kind of,
like
you know,
kind of
like that, but
standard.
also singer songwriter, write lyrics that are simple and don't create a picture, that aren't poetry,
Uh-huh.
you know, like you hurt me and you hurt me too, but I believe in myself, so everybody buy with you, whatever, you know, something really just simple like. And I'm like, I don't write music like this. You know, I write music that it comes from here and it comes out, and I, you
Yeah.
know, and if you can understand me, great, and if you can't, you can feel what I know I'm saying.
Hmm.
Well, it just turned out that joining the cover bands and this all kind of fell in the same place when they were trying to ask me to. I understand why, but at the same time, like, it wasn't me. So I started losing pieces of myself because my creativity was going out the door, having to learn nonstop covers.
Mm.
Never had time for my own stuff. Then having to rewrite the way that I would write from my heart and my gut and how I just knew the only way I knew how to write. That so I lost all my creativity and all of my connection to being the musician I wanted to be. And I
Hmm.
knew I was for probably 10 to 15 years.
How did that
I
like
lost that.
like how would you even describe that feeling? Because obviously it's not like a boom, like all of a sudden something's changed, but
Yeah.
that's a long time where it's just changed over time. Like
Yeah.
looking
I
back,
would
like
describe it as just feeling like the only way that I could get through was to overwork myself
hmm.
and be a musician still. So, like, I'd work at this organization for 7 hours. I'd go home and take a 2 hour nap. Then I'd be performing at night. Then I'd go
Hmm.
home and take a 3 hour nap. And then I'd wake up and do it all again. So
Gotcha.
I got myself to be such a musician and so busy. And a part of it was because I was like, I want to be successful. And in my mind, I thought also being successful as a musician, I have to make money.
Hmm.
And my nonprofit was, you know, I was getting paid, but it wasn't like that great. So I had to do covers. I had to be in a cover band that performed for 3 hours a night, 4 times a week until 2 or 3 in the morning, you know, getting home
Hmm.
at 3 in the morning. And so that, yeah, it just kind of sucked my spirit. And then I
Yeah.
went on this tour with a couple buddies of mine. And I realized after that tour, it was the biggest thing I've ever done. I mean, I was performing at Santa Barbara Bowl and um, uh, the, big arenas like in Seattle, like their biggest stuff like that, opening for the Avett Brothers, and it was amazing. And when I got to the Santa Barbara Bowl, I remember this. I always had a vision of myself being in this place where there were rocks, and I was on stage, and I was one of 4 people, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is it! Like I've met this goal
Hmm.
of being on that." But I also it wasn't my music, so it was the a little bit
Oh,
altered goal.
yeah.
But to get to the point or the answer to that question is that through walking away from that side of my performing,
Hmm.
I have found my creativity coming back from teaching, and I'm starting to do albums again. I'm also
Oh.
realizing that, like, I never really liked to be out in the bar scene because it was always you start at 10 o'clock and get home at 2 or whatever, but it was always very, you know, a different lifestyle than I wanted to be a part of, but I was a part of it for 20 years. So I joined it, and I
Hmm.
was like, I'm kind of sick of that nightlife lifestyle. Well, anyway, I mean, I just had an album that came out that is so creative from my creative side of something I've never done before,
Nice.
called Ian the Hurricane, and it was just like it's just like meditation, just supposed to make you feel real calm. And then this other album that's going to be coming out in the next week or two is a, you know, a very different kind of vocal album, but I'm feeling really creative right now.
Yeah.
And that to me feels like I'm finding my musician who's been lost for the last 10 to 15 years,
Yeah.
because I'm a creative at heart and I lost that creativity so hard. Now, I will say this, my creativity did come out in the ways that I would take a cover song and I would make it my own. I
Yeah.
would give it runs, or I'd be like, nope, the ending isn't going to end like this. We're going to go big, and I'm going to and like go big or go home for me. You know,
Hmm.
it's my only way of being able to release that creativity, but I'm finding it again. So, you know, I
Nice.
mean, I'm
How long would you
realizing that
say
being a
like
musician
this period is like is yeah, how long have you been in this period for? Like this
in the
era of Deborah?
creativity,
Yeah, this
I would
Deborah's
say
creativity era.
Yeah, I would say that it just started to really kick in after healing from that tour that I was talking about. It really hit me and stole all my spirit for music. And then at the same time, my mom passed away. So, like, it's a
Mm,
lot of grieving that happened. Then I walked away from Youth Frontiers, walked away from living in Minneapolis. You
yeah.
know, it was like a whole mess of grieving. So, 2 years later, I would say last year,
Uh-huh.
right after Ian, maybe 4 months after Ian hit here in Florida, I was like, I feel like creating something on
Mm.
BandLab. And then the next thing I was like, this feels like that feeling. And then I started to feel different songs. Next thing I knew, a week later, I had 6 songs that I wanted to build off of. And I'm
Oh, I
like,
love
I'm
that.
back, I'm back.
Yeah, I
And then
know.
halfway through that, I was like starting to make all these vocal albums. I'm like, I'm back, you know. But yeah, I mean, I feel connected to my music identity again.
I love that. That reminds me so much of like my myself last December, um, like 2020 December 2022, right before last year, the beginning of last year hit, and I was just like there was just different signs coming to me, being like, Ben, you're like working, you're just all you're doing is working. Like I was talking to my therapist, and I was like, really, all I talk about is like work, um, and and then if I wasn't working, I'd be like roaming around Target, or I'd just be watching like YouTube or Netflix or something like that. So it just became
Yeah.
a routine. It became really stale. And he was like, like, do you do any like hobbies outside of that? I'm like, no. Like now that I think of it, not really. And he's like, you should get into a hobby. What do you want to? And I was like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. And start, and then I decided, I was like, I haven't played music in a while, because before that point, the last time I played organized music was right before COVID. Because during
Mhm.
COVID, that was like my junior year of college, of my music ed degree, and we were set to like do this big performance in Symphony Hall, and it was like we're building up to that. We were working towards that, and I just got the we were doing like this percussion quartet with like a band with the wind ensemble accompanying it, and it was supposed to be this like quartet solo, and I auditioned for that and I got the part, and I was so excited to play it, and then COVID happened, so we just never got to play that, and I never got to be a musician again um, up until the beginning of last year of 2023, and I remember like starting to play the practice piano again, practicing my drum set, but then also I re-downloaded FL Studio and I started like making music again. And that was the first time I made music since high school, when I just started like dabbling with it. And I didn't have any music theory knowledge back then, but I was like, wait, I've like I've not only had all these years of being a musician, but like I have like the skills now from music school, and I started making music really quickly, and it wasn't that good.
Mhm.
So then, and then I started like reconnecting with one of my past clients, who's a music production coach, and started getting lessons from him. So I would say my growth to to now, like my tracks sound like professionally produced. Um, the growth has been really quick because of not only just like the skills that I've gotten from music school, um, but I feel like it's a lot from like, the passion and the fire that I got when I just started doing it. I was like, it was like a snowball going down, and I feel like
Yeah.
it's very similar to what you experienced there, with like getting back into
Yes.
songwriting.
Yep. Absolutely. 100%. I'm really like, I'm excited about, yeah, I'm really excited about this year. I have a lot of ideas of things I want to create
Ooh,
musically.
what do you
And
got
I
planned?
haven't, well, I mean, I really enjoyed doing this vocal album, this vocal warm up album. And I want to do more like that.
Uh
You know, I
huh.
want to, it's not your typical like, ah, it's like, ba da ba 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 da ba ba, you know, and then you're like, ba da ba 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 da ba ba, you know, and all these
Yeah.
things. With some of it's funky, some of it's kind of got an islandy vibe, some of it teaches you how to do harmonies, and some of it teaches you how to sustain your air with energy all the way to the end of the phrase so that it doesn't die off and go flat. And but it's all got a really, they got funky beats to them. And
Nice.
I'm like
Is that what
loving
you do with
that.
like
I'm
your students
loving.
anyway?
uh Yes and no. I have yes and no. That's a longer story. Some of them love doing the warm-ups and they like
Uh-huh.
just standard. Some of them hate doing warm-ups and they want to have like like warm-up song
Uh-huh.
list. It's like, okay, these are the songs we start with and so that we can get to the actual big song that we're working on. And then
Yeah.
I have a couple of them that I do these with. Yes.
Nice, nice. So for the ones that really like to do the warm-ups and like experiment with that, like that's who this is gonna be for.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I'm
So
pumped about it.
so now tying it in with like the teaching part, um, getting back into your creativity and prioritizing being a musician as well, like how's that affected the teaching part? How you found that it's like kind of like intertwined together?
Oh, I feel like it's all intertwined. I really love being my own boss,
Uh-huh.
you know, and being my own boss, like I can do a lot of creative mistakes with my business too. I just feel like because I'm getting more creative with my music side, like like writing and creating and using my voice, it makes me a better teacher. It makes me a better coach because
How so?
I'm finding that like through doing all of that, I'm finding my confidence again, or at least another level of it building up. And I'm discovering new tools that I'm doing in order to do that I have implemented or used in some of my students who I've been working with for a while. Who like
Mhm.
you get to a place where you're like you got to change it up a little bit, make a little things a little more fun or a little more exciting. When you've been working with somebody for 5 years, every few semesters you gotta be like, okay, we're gonna shake it up a little bit here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, and I feel like that helps me do all of that. It helps me be a little bit less afraid of making mistakes or losing students if I don't do it exactly perfect.
Uh-huh.
And also I just dive in. I want to dive in because I'm just so excited and feel so connected to that creativity right now that I feel like there's no failure.
Yeah.
That's kind of just what it feels like.
Nice, nice. So like I guess going through even like these past couple years of like finding that, did you experience any like unexpected problems like growing the studio or like anything surprising that you solved that you want to like help other teachers with?
Because I had built such a good name for myself in Minneapolis, Minnesota, working with those two organizations, working with a lot of people, and performing with a lot of people. The moment I started my studio, it was not hard for me to find people.
Hmm.
Even after COVID, when people started going to in person, I lost maybe a couple students that way, but immediately gained more. But I think the one thing to answer that question would be is the end of every semester, I lose my mind through anxiety of people continuing. Are they going to continue? Will I have to work hard to get who's going to want to work with? Like I start to go into that cycle of self-deprecation and insecurities and self-worth. Like, am I really good at this? Are these people, this person's probably going to leave. And it's okay if they leave.
Hmm.
Like that's kind of the name of the game of being a coach. Not everybody's going to stay with you for 15 years,
Yeah.
like people come and go and that's okay. There's always more people out there, but I think that would be the biggest thing for me is those semesters that I held on too much to that energy, and that was
Mm.
mainly when I wasn't being very creative and believing
Hmm.
in my voice. uh, that worry would transfer over into my communication
Oh.
with new students. And though they would start with me, I could tell that they were a little nervous about it. Where
Hmm.
now, right now, I'm like, the moment I communicate with anybody, there's some energy behind it
Yeah.
that they're like, yeah, that sounds great. They don't even care. They're like, whatever the price is, I want to do it. That sounds great. Like I'm
Yes.
ready.
Yes. That's so.
So,
Yeah. Sorry. Keep going. I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh no,
Yeah.
I think you were going to say probably the very similar to what I was just going to end it with is that the way that you see yourself inside or store whatever energy you're feeling is how that I'm just a huge believer in like what you put out comes back
Yep.
to you. So if I'm holding on to this, am I really good at this? Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should. These people are going to leave. They're going to leave, and then I'm like, why am I saying that? I've never had that issue. But if I say that, I'm manifesting that
Hmm.
belief in myself, and then the way I communicate is, so that would be the biggest thing is just try to take that and change it into something like, but you know what, I am worth this and I got this and I believe in this, and no matter what happens this semester, it's okay. Some semesters are up, some, just somehow figuring out how to communicate to yourself that like you're going to have ups and downs,
Yep.
and that's okay.
Hmm.
You're not
Yeah.
going to fail.
That is probably the most important thing to talk about there because um, the anxiety, the insecurities that pop up, they're always gonna pop up, no matter how confident, courageous that we are. So
Hmm.
knowing how to deal with that, knowing how to handle that, that's like the inner game of growing our studios and scaling that. Because a lot of times, teachers are looking for the next best strategy or what do I need to say in order to get students to buy. But if we keep
Hmm.
looking at that, like we're I feel like we're looking at the wrong thing here, and it's less about like what do we say, and it's more about like what type of energy are we having as we say it. Because like you could probably say anything to that student and they'll feel that energy and they'll be like, yeah, let's get started. Um,
Hmm.
but when
And
we're
if they
in that,
don't, I'm
yeah,
not going to hold on to that. It's like that's
yeah,
just one student. One student does not define the entire studio, you
hmm,
know?
and that's like the type of mindset and energy that's really separates those teachers that are going to be able to scale for the long run versus those that are going to like feel depleted even though they might
Yeah.
have the growth. It's not sustainable. And I wanted to ask like with well, first off, like I think that's so important because the difference of like a teacher that is feeling stuck or feeling burnt out even though they are growing, um versus one that has the growth and it feels simple, it feels
Hmm.
seamless, and it also feeds into that energy. Like the difference between those is the ones that can still hold that power even when like the insecurity does come up. Like can you stand your
Yeah.
ground? Can you still hold your space there? So for you,
Yeah.
like what are some things that you personally do to hold that energy even when the insecurity is coming up? Like still have the courage to move forward even when it's scary. Like what do you usually do? Or
That
what
is a
have you
great
done?
question. Yeah. I think in the past, well, I think there are different levels to this. It depends on where I'm at personally.
Mhm,
If I'm burnt out personally, like for example, this summer, there was a lot of family stuff that was going on. People were getting sick, and there was just
mhm,
a lot. And at the same time, I was trying to keep myself afloat, getting ready for the fall semester and also getting new students and all this stuff. And so my personal energy probably just needed to say, it's okay.
mhm.
Just rest. Don't push right now. Don't try to do everything while this is all going on. Like, figure out how to journal instead of like, I need students, because all of this energy was causing me to feel all of this.
Yeah.
But then once that's settled, I felt myself really feeling like open again. And I was able to recognize like that happens. So the next time this happens, I got to figure out a different way to approach all of this because I was
Mhm,
overwhelming myself. But like this semester, I could use a couple more students, but I came into it on purpose saying, I'm not going to worry about it this time.
mhm.
I'll put out there into the universe and on social media so people actually see it, right? That I have openings, and I'll do it when I think about it here and there. But I'm not going to try to be like now, 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 now. I'm just going to be like it'll happen.
Yep.
And the moment I did that, I had three people reach out about it, and within a week of me being like, I'm not going to overthink this. It's just going to work out. And that was also because the stuff that I was posting wasn't like, hey, I have an opening. It was like, ah, like life is good right now. I have this thing that's going on and I can't
Mm-hmm.
wait to do this, and I was talking about successes. And then maybe at the bottom, I put something on the lines of like, I would love to work with you if you want to fly, or, contact info is in the
Yeah.
whatever, and, all that stuff. So just, it was a different approach of not feeling the anxiety of need, like I need this, oh no, but instead of being like, I desire to make this happen, but if it doesn't, I'm going to be okay.
Yep.
Like just switching the way I felt inside. I also just watched I watch a lot of podcasts a lot of times when I'm in these places, just to constantly get reminders. And I watched this one podcast, I forget this person's name, but at the end they had mentioned, your top five is so important, and not the top five personal friends, though that's very important too, but not top five personal, but top five you have professional. And I realized right now, I'm like, oh my gosh, being here, I don't have a top five. In Minneapolis, I had a top 30, right?
Mm.
Of like people that were gunning it. They were just hard working. We all were constantly doing stuff together and inspiring each other and all these creative ideas. But down here is like, I don't. Actually, I thought to myself, you are one of the top five for my professional right now.
Oh, appreciate
People
it.
that I look at and I'm like, I admire what you're doing. We actually are connecting, and like, watching your videos, but even talking to you in person like this, you inspire me to like keep going and not give up. So I think what I'm leaning towards is, to answer that question, is I love the idea of having your top five. It could be a top five professional, but also like one of those could be like, what is your hobby? And then
Yep.
hiring somebody to help you with your hobby that is also
Exactly.
in your
Yep.
top five, because they're running their own business, teaching or coaching, or they, like that's the same kind of, so it's still in your top five. So
Mm-hmm.
I just love that concept. So I think that this year I want to build up my top five, the people I have in
Ah,
my life that are my mentors,
yeah.
my role models, people I can connect with, that I see and I look at, and you're like, we're kind of on the same page, but like you are inspiring me to go do it,
Yes. That's that's a huge part about like a big part about like why I hired my production coach is because we've already had that personal relationship built already, and it was just so easy because I already knew how we were, but then we just connected on a personal level as
It's
well.
awesome.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
Ah,
I love
man, I
that.
love this. I love this. This is like obviously like I go into these conversations with like, yeah, I have a plan, but I don't expect it to land anywhere. And I love
Hmm.
like where we've ended up with this conversation.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. I think
Yeah.
we both, I mean, it's obvious we both are in pretty good places right now when it comes to like
Hmm.
believing in our talent and believing in our business, and excited to move forward and push and not give up.
Yeah.
Hey, who knows, 6 months from now, one of us could be like, I am having a really tough time and I'm
Yeah.
not happy anymore. It always fluctuates, but it's good to lean into the good ones and just go for it as hard as you can, because you never know when it could just tilt the other way for a minute.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to just like share is like I think one thing I'm always thinking about, or one thing I was really thinking about last month, and then I'm still thinking about it now, but what is going to be my theme for 2024? And the big words that came up for me was like courage. Not just confidence, but like courage. And I really want to start building my courage this year and living a courageous life and being able to share that energy with my audience as well. Because I've learned like strategically, if you want to attract more committed students, then we live a life out of courage, but also it's like emotionally and spiritually, it feels so much better to live a life out of that rather than out of fear and out of anxiety. Um, and so that's going to be my that's going to be one of my themes for this year is courage. And then also I think I want to create more this year. as well, and be more creative, and just put more stuff out there into the universe. Um, like that's why I'm doing these interviews and having these conversations, because it's fun. I like to create these things. I'm also going all in on YouTube as well. So I'm working with I'm just going to start with a YouTube agency with this, which is scary because I don't know if it's going to work out in terms of my YouTube channel or anything like that, but I'm just going to go in and create and just make stuff that I really like and that I feel really proud of. And then me and my housemate too, we're starting to create like our own brand for just for like a creative collective here, and we're creating content. So it's just like and then obviously myself, my music too. So I just want to be in this life where I'm constantly creating, and that's it. Like just creating more things. So that's my theme of the year. What's your theme that comes up?
I definitely think, and this is inspired by you from our very first conversation and watching, I should say, watching all the videos before we had our very first conversation, but consistency.
Consistency, nice.
That, yeah, I mean, that kind of speaks for itself. Consistency and then creativity. Absolutely. I'm feeling very creative. So I'm going to really let that out. But I think the other one too, consistency and creativity for professional. But I think the other one that's really going to help my professional environment as well is being more conscious of my, like where I'm at with my own health,
Mm.
mental, physical. Um, you know, teaching, you sit a lot. And even being creative, you sit a lot. And I will spend an entire day sitting being creative in like across like, uh, t- way. And the next thing I know, I'm like, I haven't gotten out of this position in 3 hours. And I
Mm.
try to uncross my legs and I'm like, oh my gosh,
I know.
this is
All of a sudden,
not
your legs
healthy.
are getting the little prickly like needles.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm trying to add, and I know that if I work, if I just add even simple things to my physical health of like every hour I have to stand up and just walk for 1 minute around the house, just like walk around in circles around the house just to get some movement.
Yeah.
It's going to also help my mental stability and keep myself a little more balanced. So maybe, I mean, a balance of health, I think is going to be would be a third one for me.
Cool. Well, yeah, I appreciate you for sharing all of this. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It
Of
was
course. What's
wonderful.
the best if where should I put like should I where can people connect with you? Like should I put your website, like your Facebook? Like what's the best thing I could share with
Sure.
people?
So on my website is Debra G Debra G Music, one word,
Uh-huh.
.com. And then all of my social media, uh, like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Cool.
I use Threads, but I mean, it's just whatever. But those are all also Debra G Music. You can find me if you look up Debra G Music. And
Awesome.
usually G Music is one word,
Mhm.
especially for Facebook, because they wouldn't let me use my last letter. But
Yeah, I'll get the links for everything from you, and I'll put it in like the description of the video.
awesome. Sounds good. I
Cool.
can send them to you too via email if you'd like, or Facebook Messenger.
Cool. Yeah. If anyone wants to chat with Deborah, I'll leave that link for you to connect with her. Anyone wants to chat with me, got any questions, and I'm happy to chat as well. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming on again.